Well, hello everyone, whatever time this recording finds you, if you're watching sometime in the future. And for those of you live, thank you for being here. And Bryan, thank you for being here. My name is Jay Berkowitz, and this is the 10 Golden Rules Internet Marketing for Law Firms webinar. And we'll probably put this out as a podcast as well. So welcome to folks listening on iTunes or Spotify or whatever. And we're very fortunate to have Bryan with us today, and he's going to tell his story, or our joint story, how he's significantly improved his marketing and his business, really his signed cases. So I'm going to get to Bryan in just 2 minutes, but first I just wanted to show you some of the numbers that we promised, and then we'll talk about how we got there. So the great news for Bryan is almost anything you search, and we'll show you a bunch of examples. This is a search for Oklahoma City car accident lawyers, and he's based in Oklahoma City. And this is a search as if you were searching in Oklahoma City. He's #1 in the Google screened LSAs and #1 in the Google Maps. And that's pretty consistent. We'll show you a bunch of examples. His SEO, his search engine optimization, the number of keywords. When we started working a couple years ago, he had 65 keywords in the first 2 pages of Google, and now he's over 1,100 keywords. So meaning if you search a keyword phrase, his website comes up in that Google search. Again, we'll go into some more details, but the part that really matters, and I hear this from attorneys all the time, is I don't really care if I'm ranked in Google unless it gives me cases. And in a recent month, Bryan got 45 signed retainers, mostly car accident, motor vehicle accident cases. So Bryan, I just wanted to, just right off the top, I wanted to talk a little bit about, what you were doing before, who were you were working with, and how in your, just on a broad spectrum, how we achieved some of these goals.
Sure, Jay, I appreciate it. So when he says I'm a solo practitioner, I'm truly a solo practitioner. I'm the only lawyer in my office. I was with a firm for several years before I decided to go to my own. So I am competing, like all solo practitioners in the injury business, against big firms that put a lot of money behind advertising on buses, sports stadiums, radio, TV, on and on. And I didn't have that kind of financial backing to get out there and do that. So I knew that you need to have a presence on Google. I hired a local company to help me out, and it was a struggle. I just wasn't getting the cases the number of calls that I needed. And we're all in business. We want calls first. That's the main thing. And we can weed out the good cases from the not so good cases. So I was just looking to generate calls, and like I started my own practice, and it'd been okay for a while, but then it started diving down. The calls weren't coming in, and I started to panic. Maybe too strong, but it's something close to that. So I looked around and quickly came upon one of Jay's YouTubes, like, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I picked up the phone and called him, and we had a brief consultation. I was impressed. And then we had a more formal meeting, kind of talking about what they do, how they do it, how it works. And all this was pretty foreign to me about the algorithms and Google and all that, but I was impressed that they certainly knew what they were doing. So we started our business relationship, and over the last couple of years that I've been with them, it has increased more than I would have ever expected. We are not just getting more calls, which it starts a little bit slow, and then it just builds and builds and builds, and it's still building. So it is just a constant rise of calls, and it's not just the number of calls; it is the quality of calls. I'm in the car injury business, and the vast majority of the calls that Jay and his team funnel to me through all the Google stuff is car accident injury cases. So it has been a great success for my office, and we have expanded based on that. We've expanded staff, we've expanded space, just to help with the number of cases we have to get work correctly for the clients.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. So now we're going to go, I'll just share an intro for Bryan and the agenda. Let me just get the slides again. So, the cases Bryan was signing, 11, 9, 6, and now 37, 45, some tremendous months. So that was the 400% increase we promised in the event marketing. So without further ado, I'll just touch on the agenda quickly. So we're going to cover the following things. We're going to talk about how to get right to the top of Google, the local service ads, or Google screened. People call it different things. We're going to talk about, a simple strategy we did right out of the gate with Bryan to increase his website conversions by 20%. My friend and business coach Josh Nelson always says, what gets measured gets attention and improves. So we'll talk about the numbers because we pay a lot of attention to the numbers, so you know what's working and what you need to focus on. You all know, if you've been to some of these webinars, I like to talk about my SEO strategy, and the simplification of that is the ABCs of SEO. The really simple A, B, and C, all you need to do for your search engine optimization. We'll touch on social media and talk about how Bryan got 300,000 views on one of his videos. We'll touch on local search. And I'll give you our simple strategy that you can do a lot of this stuff without spreading yourself thin, and how we only need a couple hours every quarter, like once every 3 months from Bryan, to cover off his SEO with social media. We'll talk about that strategy. And then I just want to ask, I want to share with you why Bryan is a great client, and he really is. And then we'll ask him to share a little bit more about working with an agency and what you should be looking for if you're picking a great marketing agency. And so just before we go too much further, quick introductions. Oh, and one more thing. If you're watching this in the future on YouTube or listening on the podcast, I'd love it if you'd subscribe on YouTube and give us a nice comment. We've had over 150,000 views. You see, here's the ABCs of SEO has had, we're almost at 20,000 views. So we'd love you to join the community and become a subscriber. Just click that subscribe button. And on the podcast, if you're listening on iTunes or Shopify, we'd love a 5-star rating, a 5-star review. So Bryan went to Southern Methodist for his undergrad and did a JD with honors at the University of Oklahoma, and then was admitted to the bar. And he's also admitted to practice before the district court in Oklahoma in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. Bryan, what does that mean? Is that an additional education or certification you needed?
Yeah, it was an additional bar admission just at the 10th Circuit. So if I have a case that gets appealed up through certain levels, then I'm licensed to practice and argue in the 10th Circuit.
Great. And anything you want to tell us about your college career?
Well, my college career was rife with what am I going to do with my life, and where am I going to go, and what am I going to do, and ended up kind of just sort of randomly deciding law school sounds like a good idea. I had some family who were attorneys, talked to them, and yeah, so college was the typical college experience, and at the end I had to make a decision to move on to law school.
Great. And then you're in the Oklahoma Bar and the Trial Lawyers Association, and Bryan's a super lawyer. I always thought super lawyers sounded like a funny certification when I first heard of it, but super lawyers is actually voted on by your peers, right?
Yeah, it is. I think a lot of those things are kind of gimmicky, but super lawyers is legitimate. It is really truly voted on by your peers. I vote every year for lawyers that I know and work with and respect. So it's actually a pretty significant honor, and I'm proud to be in it.
Yeah, we love it when our attorneys get that, because they were voted on by the other lawyers in the state. Right. And then the Trial Lawyers Top 100, that's pretty awesome. How do you get that, and what does that mean?
So that is something that you join up to become involved with, and it's another thing that is peer reviewed. It's not voted like super lawyers, but it is peer reviewed, and so it's another just kind of stamp of approval from the people that you work with.
Awesome. And you mentioned you focus on car wrecks, personal injury. You want to talk a little bit about the practice and what's a great case for you?
Yeah, so it's a almost complete injury law firm, injury practice. Most of that is vehicle wrecks, truck wrecks, car wrecks, motorcycles. Also have a pretty healthy premises liability practice. So those two areas are really what our main focus is on. We will from time to time take some insurance dispute cases. Someone's getting or having trouble with their insurance paying a claim for whatever reason. So, what makes a great case is the client always. It's a client being able to tell his or her story about the impact that the injuries have had on them, this experience has had on them. So my first and most important thing to look at on a case is what makes a good case is the quality of the client and the story they have to tell.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And, very quickly, I didn't do a slide for myself, but my name is Jay Berkowitz. And if you haven't been on these webinars or podcasts before, my company is called 10 Golden Rules, and we do internet marketing for law firms. So we're talking to folks like Bryan and I see a number of our friends and clients, Bob Arnold and Anne Marie's here, Jerry Parker and Mel Stein, but a bunch of friends and attorneys on the webinar live today. And we talk to folks like this all day, every day. And it'll be our 20th anniversary this year. So we've been doing this and refining our processes over the last 20 years. And I'm proud to say we've gotten really good at it. So let me go ahead now. And, the first section we talked about, or promised, if you will, was the local service ads, or Google screened. And this has been one of the big breakthroughs for most of our clients, because Google introduced this new product. It's really a new service from them. And about 14, 16 months ago, and they rolled it across the country. So it was first in Austin and San Diego, in just a couple practice areas, and now it's in about 20 practice areas, and pretty much across the country. So the difference with this product is it's pay per call. So the Google screened, or local service ads, is right at the very top of a Google search. So here's a search for Oklahoma City car accident lawyers. Bryan's in the #1 position for this search. He's also in the Google Maps. We'll talk about that after. But these are great because you get a phone call and you only pay per call. And Bryan, I know you've loved these. You want to talk a little bit about, what you see as the client getting these phone calls?
Sure. So they come to me through an app, and it is either they can send a direct message. I get a lot of those, like basically a text message through the LSA app, and you can respond immediately with your own text message or set up a time to call. Other times they will just, the phone rings and someone here picks it up, they talk kind of through the case. I get the call and vet it. So it has been an extraordinary resource for my practice. I don't, if I had to say one thing has improved the number of calls and quality calls that we get, it's probably LSA. I mean, it has just been tremendous. So it's immediate, it's quick, you know exactly who's calling, what it's about, or who's messaging, what they want to talk about. Every now and then you may get something that's not car related, but you could make it work into a case. So it has just been a real boon to my practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to an attorney in Queens last week, and they're not even approved for the LSA. They're a personal injury lawyer. And so I was trying to explain to them, like, you're missing 40% of the leads, because on a phone, you're going to see 2 of these, and it takes up almost the entire phone screen, and people just click to call. And consumers are getting familiar with this because it's also available in home services like air conditioning, plumbers. So this has been around for 5 years with Google giving some kind of check mark, and most people don't know what it means, but we actually helped Bryan get through a vetting process.
Right, and I think just seeing Google screen from people, that's important. It means something, like this person's vetted, he's local. I think it's really important for people to see that. So it's made a huge difference, as I said.
Great. So I have grabbed a few slides, just if you haven't done this. So the basic setup is, you go through and you give them, where do you want the phone calls, and you've got to put in your license. There's about 17 things that we help a law firm. So if you haven't gotten screened or approved, we're happy to get you through that. Of course, Bryan's got all the check marks, and he's screened and approved. And then when you're in the app, and he talked about the app, so you can log in through your computer. This is the computer version, but obviously it's great, and that's a great tip that Bryan shared. You should definitely get the app if you're on the program, because then you can get those leads like right away, or make sure someone in your intake department has the app. But these are all the different areas. You can see your leads and look at your profile and budget and billing. And we've done an entire webinar on this topic about Google Screened, and there's 6 basic tips, but I wanted to just give you the headlines today. And we call it our secret algorithm. But the one thing that's one of the things, and I'll go through 4 or 5 of the 6 components of our secret algorithm. One thing that Bryan does extremely well, and his team does very, very well, is you want to give Google feedback, because Google Screened, or LSAs, is run by an artificial intelligence algorithm. So you've got to give them feedback, like, and we recommend getting in the back end twice a day. So this is how the leads look. We block, the customer's name and the phone numbers and whatnot. But you see here that Bryan has moved, or his team has moved, 59 of the 60 leads and indicated to Google, these are completed, these are good leads, they're in our practice area, and we're happy to pay for these. And then these are, either, someone looking for a real estate lawyer or something that he shouldn't have gotten that phone call and he doesn't want to pay for it. So you only pay for the leads in your practice area. And if it's if it's a robocall or a salesperson, you archive those, you don't have to pay for those. And then there's just one lead that still needs to be designated. Bryan, how do you guys handle this? Like, how do you do such a great job of giving Google that feedback?
Well, it's mostly up to me to determine if it's a case that we're going to call back or how we respond to it. So I am like most people. I've got my phone with me, my Apple Watch, my iPad. So a lead comes through, I check it. I've got two other assistants who are on it. Like if I'm in a deposition or if I'm in court or out of town for some reason, they check it. So we all have the app and it pops up a notification, and we are all used to and trained to click it immediately. So it is immediate feedback from my office when we get one. There may be a little delay, but if we don't get back to them within the hour, that's unusual for us. Sometimes you'll get these to the middle of the night or on the weekend, it takes a little longer to respond. But I've got two people here dedicated with the app on their phone and their devices that we respond right away. So, and that is the key. I've noticed that if you don't give Google feedback or LSA feedback, and you don't answer the calls, I've got a 24-hour answering service. So they're always talking to somebody live. Makes all the difference.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better. Like what we're talking about here is, so many attorneys I talk to say they got screened, but they've fallen out of the top 3. I think we're going to do a webinar called Help, I've Fallen and I Can't Get Back Up. And the reasons why you're not in the top 3 is you're not giving the algorithm the feedback. So Bryan and his team do such a great job of getting in there and marking these cases. And, there's a lot of components to it. So the second thing that they do a great job, and this is one of their cases, again, we blocked the name, but they put a lot of notes in each lead. And if you think of Google, all of Google's products have an algorithm to them. And like Google SEO, there's search engine optimization. So in LSA, it's got an algorithm to it. So it's like, how quickly do you answer the phone? How quickly do you designate the leads? How many of the leads do you accept? And the notes that you put in there is like the copywriting, the SEO copywriting of LSA. So you see here, car wreck, injured during a motor vehicle crash and sustained personal injuries. Like I couldn't have written this better myself, because Bryan or his team has put in keywords and they put in notes and they're feeding back to the algorithm some SEO content. The other thing is you can listen to all these calls. So there's a little, component here of the back end system, and you just click play and you can hear the call. So like, let's say Bryan was in court and someone on his team took the call and he wants to go in and listen to it. He can designate it and just put the notes in here if someone hasn't put the notes in. Bryan, you want to add to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll add one thing on the iPhone and iPad apps. In addition to listening to it, you can see an immediate live transcript. So you can read it. So if I'm in court or I'm in a deposition, I'm on a break or something, I don't have to listen to it. I can read it and say, hey, this is a viable case. I can't call. Get someone in the office to call back immediately. But yeah, you're right. And I've noticed that if we put in the right words in the notes, it just gets more and more active. So it's been one of the best tools we have.
Yeah, and the tool, by the way, keeps getting better and better, and they do record the calls, and then the AI is transcribing the calls. So no one at Google's listening to these calls, but the artificial intelligence is doing that for us. And Bryan talked about the app, and here's the app comes in and all your leads come in and you can click on the leads. Bryan, you pretty much talked about it, but you want to mention?
Yeah, so you get a lead, and if I'm not here to talk to them or someone's not here to talk to them, then one of the other staff or the answering service will talk to them. So you click on the lead and it shows, you read the transcript, listen to the call. my personal practice is to respond to everybody. I think that's important, not just for the client, but I think it's important for the algorithm too. So yeah, you look at it, you listen to the call. If it's a viable case, you call them back and find out the facts of what happened. And hey, I got your message on Google. When's a good time to call? And it's, we've, as I said many times already, but we've just had great success with it. And the app is extremely simple to use. It is, like I said, it's immediate. And if you've got a lead on a big case, you can take care of it right then.
Okay, great. And there's a couple questions, Jenna. Thanks for giving me the heads up. Stephanie asked how much we should pay. How much should we pay? The general guideline with local service ads is you're going to put a large budget, and Google's not going to spend the large budget. So you want to put about $2,000, $3,000 a week. And I'll say it again, Google's not going to spend that money. When you just start out, you'd be lucky to get 2 or 3 calls in your first month. So you've got to give the app a lot of the feedback we talked about. You've got to, take the leads. So you got to mark them as good. And when you're starting out, you don't want to, you want to be really careful to accept the leads they give you and mark them as booked. You don't want to be disputing, like if someone's in an accident, but they caused the accident, you want to take that lead and pay for it. So you want to tell Google, hey, anytime someone searches for car wreck lawyer, car accident attorney near me, and they click on one of these Google local service ads, you want to tell Google, I want more of these. And so you don't want to be archiving anything that is in your practice area. So, over time, you'll start getting maybe, and depending on your market, like in Bryan's market, he probably averages $100 a lead. And I think we got the data coming up. And then he might convert 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So, it might end up costing, $500, $600, $700 to get a signed case. In New York or LA, it might be 2 or 3 times that. So you might pay $200 or $300 a lead, and you might convert, 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So how much you should pay? You should set a budget that's very high, $2,000, $3,000, and then you're only going to pay per lead. So you're only going to pay per call, or if you get a text lead. And then Bob Arnold said, I don't see the app on Google Play. Jenna, maybe you can just research that for us and answer in the chat. Oh, he found the app. It's called Google LSA. There you go. Thanks for doing the research, Bob. Yeah, and here's some of the data. So, this is just looking at 6 months worth of data. And, we in this month, we only got 6 leads. So we only spent $390. It was $65 a lead, but generally the leads are $120, $150 each. And it seems like Bryan's converting, 6 out of 35, 5 out of 35, 4 out of 15. So around, 30 to 40, that's pretty good, 30 or 40%. Really good conversion percentage. So these are signed clients, and the cost per case, $834. Now, in a lot of states will be jealous to have an $800 signed case. Like I said, New York, Florida, Texas, California are going to be probably $2,000 for a signed case, but generally these are going to be better and less than the cost of a pay-per-click case, signed case. We're also tracking the star rating and the reviews. It's very important to get 1 to 2 new reviews every week. 1 to 2 new reviews every week. So it's not like Maps where the guy with the most reviews comes up in the Google Maps. It's more important to get 1 to 2 new reviews per week. And the Google reps have told us that, but it's also, I would say that's also news for Google Maps, where, anytime Google tells you something, it generally is carried across their different algorithms. So now we're a little bit more focused on the cadence, the regularity of getting 1 to 2 new reviews per week. Bryan, anything you want to share about these kind of numbers?
I just the cost per case, $835 for me, it's minuscule. I mean, compared to the fees that this LSA has generated for me. I mean, I've signed up multiple 6-figure cases from LSA alone. So it is, like I said, a very minimal expense for the quality of cases you get. That's my main takeaway from it, is I just sometimes can't believe I'm spending such little money to get such big reward out of it.
Yeah. And, I titled this slide, What Gets Measured Gets Attention and Improves. And Brian's been great. And that's one of the things I mentioned earlier. He's a great client. Him and his team give us this feedback. So we know how many signed clients there were. We know how it's working. Like so many clients don't take the time to put the data, give us the data back in. And so we're kind of running blind when it comes to the marketing.
Yeah, and before, sorry to interrupt, Jay, but before I had you guys, I mean, we were kind of running blind and not giving this the feedback it needs. And you've got to pay attention to it. You've got to give it the feedback, otherwise it's not going to work for you as well as it could. So, I do what Jay and his team tell me, and they're right every time. And I give it the feedback at once, and I can tell if we get a little lax, if we're in trial and we're not as focused on this as we should be, it slows down a little bit. But as long as you pay attention to it and you are quick and you respond, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And what Brian said is not insignificant. Like if they take the eye off the ball for a couple of weeks or a month or two, we see that across the country. If you're not in the app, giving the feedback and answering the phone is really critical. And then I threw another top secret logo here, because you see the team has missed very few calls, 3, 1 month, 2, and sometimes people hang up before you can answer the phone. So Google plays a little whisper and says, this call is being recorded for quality assistance or whatever. Some people hang up right there because they don't want their call recorded. Now, Brian will still get a notification in the app and he can still call that person back, which is one of the best reasons to have the app, because that's still a lead and they're probably going to go to somebody else's website. So you definitely want to still call them back. And then you go in the app and you say, hey, I was able to call this person back. But, the very small number of missed calls here, this is a total, the totals for a bigger, this is like a 14 or 15 month report. So, 14 months, they've only missed 24 calls. And I would argue that most of those were probably people who hung up, because Brian's team does a great job answering the phone. So part of the secret algorithm, matter of fact, the number one thing is you've got to answer the phone within 15 seconds and you can't miss any calls. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And by the way, so many firms tell us, oh, we're great at answering the phone. We always answer the phone. We have an after hours call service. But then once we get the data back, because Google tracks it, how many missed calls and how many calls were answered in like 45 seconds, 60 seconds. Unfortunately, there's no middle ground here. Your receptionist can't go to the restroom and nobody else is answering the calls and you're missing calls or getting 2-3 minutes to answer calls. The only way to get in the top 3 is to sort of check off all 6 or 7 items that we're sharing here today. And then I talked about the reviews, getting 1 to 2 new reviews per week. Brian, you want to talk about some of the things your team does to get reviews?
Yeah, I kind of keep the reviews to myself as far as getting the clients to do it. I find it more personal. I think they're more responsive when I ask. So I typically ask them on when they come in for a settlement or we resolve the case, and we give them their check and they sign off on the paperwork. Hey, we did a good job. I'm glad you're happy. I'm going to text you a link to leave me a review. I mean, it means a lot to us. And most of these people have found us on Google anyway. A great number of them have found us on Google. So they're used to it. They rely on reviews. They know it means something and it's important. So hardly ever get any pushback from them at all. I mean, some people won't do it, of course, but the majority of it do. And it's when my reviews are really coming through, it makes a lot of difference on LSA and everything else. And it is probably the one thing when I'm talking to a new client, that's what they're most impressed with, is the number of reviews we have. Good reviews. I mean, they're all generally 5-star in my office. So that always catches their eye. It's always very important. It's just like you looking for a restaurant. You're not going to go to a place that's 2.2 stars. You want the best. So it is about as, besides answering calls like Jay just talked about, that's got to be close to the top second, probably most important thing that we do is get the reviews. I'm not always great at asking, or I may forget or ask them later, but it's something we always strive to get everyone to leave us a good review.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I'm an SEO guy, right? So I'm always thinking we need the reviews for Google Maps and LSAs, but I'm also a consumer, and we look at reviews like almost anything you buy these days. You have a look at the Google reviews. So you're selling yourself short if you don't get every possible client that you have a good result for. Get them to do that Google review, and you just text them right there, Brian, on their cell phone.
Yeah, I'll just text them because they can't do it. I don't. You probably know them more than I do, but if they do it here at my office and they're on the Wi-Fi, it doesn't really work. So they got to kind of leave the premises. But yeah, I send them a text with a link, and they click the link, it goes right to it. You hit 5 stars. You want to leave a comment, that's fine. It doesn't take long at all. So yeah, I just text them with a link directly. And right so far, that's what I found to be the best. I think it's more personal than some of the programs you can use that say, hey, I can't remember all their names, but thanks for using Bryan Garrett's office. He'd love a review, but I think it's more personal and I get better response than when I send it directly to him.
Yeah, if you've got a team doing it, we recommend Bird Eye or Podium. Those are the programs you're talking about. But Brian's fortunate enough to see the clients himself and have that relationship. But obviously, if you've got a team and you can use some of those tools and what again, and not a subtle point that Brian made, if they log into your Wi-Fi, Google's going to see all those reviews coming from the same IP address. So it's a small thing, but asking them to do it on their cell phone is more beneficial. So that was awesome, and we covered the local service ads, and hopefully everybody's got value. And by the way, if you did, give us a shout out in the YouTube comments or something if you're watching this 6 months from now and you're gonna change your game on your LSAs. So the next section, and this one's real quick, it's something that a lot of our clients didn't have on their website, and it can improve your conversion 20 to 30%. If you think of that, that's like a game changer. Like, for every 10 people who come to your website, you're going to get 2 more leads. And it's super simple, and on Brian's website, there's this young woman at the bottom corner, and we wait, 8 or 9, 10 seconds, and the chat box comes up. And I have this conversation with folks all the time. They're like, well, I don't like the chat box, or I don't use the chat box. But what we found is that, guess what? 20 or 30% of people do use the chat box. And I always give the example of, like, what if someone's aunt was injured and she's doing research for her aunt, and she wasn't the one in the car accident. So she's sitting at work. She shouldn't be doing Google research for her aunt's car accident, but she works wherever she works at an accounting firm, and she's doing research for her aunt. So she's not going to pick up the phone and call. There's no way she's going to call the firm because she's sitting at work, or her kids are homeschooling or whatever, and so she's also not going to fill out the email form because it's not her accident. She doesn't want to get this, she perceives she'll get spam and she'll get emailed and stuff. But, there's 20 or 30% of people who will do a chat. And so just by adding this chat functionality on the website, we believe that Brian's leads increased 20 or 30%. Brian, what was your experience when we first added the chat function?
It's been great, and what you said is exactly right. I've got clients currently, multiple clients whose sister or mom or aunt, like you said, is looking for a lawyer to help them out, and they can't make a phone call for whatever reason. They're at work, they're busy, whatever it may be, and they use the chat. And mine's set up so we immediately get an email and immediately get text messages, me and 2 other staff, so we can respond right away. So yeah, there has been a definite increase in good cases that I've gotten once we added the chat box. Been really impressed with it. It's worked very well.
And one of the nice things about this service, and we recommend a couple of these different products, and there's even an artificial intelligence one we're testing on our own website. You get, when it becomes a lead, you get the leads, and you only pay when it's a qualified lead, right?
Right.
So someone's actually talking to these folks, qualifying them, and then Brian's paying I forget, like $18 or $20, but only for a qualified lead. So if someone wants their address and they're coming for a meeting, they'll give them the address free of charge. If someone wants something else on the website, they'll answer those questions, and you don't pay for that. So it's a really great service because you only pay for a qualified lead.
Yeah, and the other thing I didn't mention is if it's a good qualified case, there's a program they use that they'll connect it by telephone directly to the office.
Yeah. So you're just sitting there working or having lunch, and you get a phone call, and it's a qualified lead. They've already found out this person's injured. All right. Well, the next section I called our SEO secret sauce, and it's kind of like I used to work in marketing for McDonald's, and we had our, our secret sauce on the Big Macs or whatever. But our secret sauce that we've been using for 7 years now is answering questions, our secret for SEO. And if you think of it, it's pretty straightforward. Like when people go to Google, you don't Google things you know the answer to. So if somebody anywhere in the world or anywhere in the US searches, is it worth suing after a car accident? The Bryan Garrett Law website has the best answer in the world to that question. So these are paid ads, but Bryan's website answered that question according to Google better than anyone in the world. And the reason we know this is working so well, again, we started this 7 years ago, but for 1 or 2, 3 years, Google started showing this more frequently. People also ask. So Google's recognizing for their users, for all of us, right, that, we're asking a question, and here's another slight variation of that question. And then this is super powerful. It's called a rich snippet. It's the number one SEO answer that Google's rewarding the website for having the best answer right at the top of Google. The reason it's so powerful is it's like, there it is, right at the top of Google. And sometimes they even put it in a box. So every month we give Bryan, every quarter, once every 3 months, we give him about a dozen questions, and he even makes up some of the questions himself, because we want to answer the questions that people are asking him that they would be asking in Google. And then he records these videos. This one is the top performer. It's had over 100,000 views on YouTube. And it's pretty straightforward. Is it worth getting a lawyer for a car accident in Oklahoma? So Bryan, you work on this program with us. How is it for you, and what have you learned from this?
I keep learning about it. It is the videos, not my favorite thing to do, to sit there and talk into the camera, but they work. I mean, that's the answer. They work. I have had many clients who come in, they'll make a phone call, they'll come in for the initial consultation. Hey, how'd you hear about me? Well, I saw you on TV. Well, you didn't, because I'm not on traditional TV, but they see these YouTube videos. Laid in bed, client just the other day came in, laid in bed, looking for a lawyer for his son's car wreck, came across my videos, liked them, called me the next day, get them signed up. So I've been to dinner, and the bartender, the waitress will say, "Hey, I saw you on TV the other day." So they absolutely make a difference, and I continue to see increased calls and leads and signed cases because of these videos. So and the questions, like Jay was talking about, these are the questions clients have. That's why they call a lawyer. So they're going to Google these questions. And so if I come up and I'm in their area, they know I'm the guy to call. So these have worked extremely well.
And we've come up with a methodology to make it as easy as we can for the attorneys, because I can't write authentic content like Bryan can, and he doesn't have time to write content. But if he just answers a question, that's the best content. Like I said, people are searching questions. So we actually title the video with the question, and then Bryan answers them. So we prep you, we do a little rehearsal on Zoom, and then we bring in a videographer, and he sits, he sets his camera up in your boardroom. This is Bryan's boardroom. And Bryan, by the way, you were humble. You said you don't love doing it, but I use these as examples all the time for other attorneys of how to do a great video, because it's authentic, and Bryan's looking right in the camera like he's someone sitting in his boardroom. So is it easy? Like, you do it once every quarter?
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, I think probably the first one, I didn't know what to expect, probably over prepared a little bit, but yeah, once you find kind of that groove and that authenticity, and you talk to the camera like they're a client asking questions that clients ask all the time, so they're easy for me to answer because I answer them every day, all week long. So yeah, they're easy. They don't take much time. I mean, what do we spend in a video shoot? An hour and a half, maybe tops.
Yeah. Every
3 months. So again, it's the limited, very, very small amount of time is minuscule compared to the results we get from it. So it's not a lot of work on my part, honestly. It's literally just sitting there answering questions that I answer all the time. So from my standpoint, it's fairly straightforward. As long as I just don't mumble and stutter and all that, we get through it okay.
And that's the authenticity, I think, is what makes Bryan very successful with this. And then we have something, it's a term I coined, many years ago, called cascading content. And really simply what we do is we take the video and it goes on YouTube. And then we also use the video on a blog post. So the video, Google owns YouTube. So you're search engine optimizing just by using YouTube for question and answers. And then we've got the same thing, the pain and suffering blog post and how to calculate pain and suffering. The video from YouTube is embedded on the blog. Now, there's a few reasons for that. Obviously, Google owns YouTube. And secondly, anyone can play it. Every device can play YouTube. It works really well. And, putting that on the blog is like supercharging a blog post. So your SEO, search engine optimization, you're answering a question. You got a blog post with, talks all about the keywords we want to target. And then you've got the video. So it's like a supercharged blog post. And then it helps it to rank like we saw in the Google results. And then the cascading is like a river cascades over a waterfall and creates little waterfalls and streams and tributaries. So we take that video on YouTube, we put it on the blog, we put it on, this is Instagram, this is Facebook. And then we also use these on Google Maps. So the Google business profile, what the consumer calls Google Maps, is your own micro Google website. It's owned by Google, but you can get in there and update things, shows all your reviews and shows your content that you were able to update. So we go in and we update with the video every week and the blog post, and we just link back to the blog post. So, what we're doing here is like sort of checking off about 8 boxes. We got the video SEO, we got the question and answer SEO, we got a blog post with supercharged video SEO. We're posting it in, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn, etc. We're using it in Google Maps, and we also take these question and answers and send them out in a monthly newsletter. So, I call this the easy way to do SEO and social media. And everyone says, "Oh, I got to do Instagram and Facebook," but Bryan, you don't have to do a thing other than sit down with us once a quarter, right?
I don't do anything. No, we have our the video shoots and our meetings, and no, I don't have to do it. They do it all. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't do any of it either. We've got a great team at 10 Golden Rules. So, I sit in on the video shoot with Bryan, and then we've also come up with this great secondary strategy. And Bryan, sometimes we ask you to tell your funny stories, and you told the story about the pizza delivery guy. You
Right.
Just tell that one quickly.
Yeah. So that was a terrible wreck. My client was just very severely permanently injured, and we were doing some research. It was hit by one of the big pizza delivery companies, and doing some research on the delivery guy, and found out on Instagram, I think it was Instagram, maybe in Facebook, I think it was Instagram, that he's in the kitchen. This is minutes before the wreck, in the kitchen smoking a joint before he took off on this delivery and caused this wreck. So that was quite a find for the case. It helped us.
So we asked Bryan to just tell some of the funny stories that have happened to him. I'm just trying to get this video to play. Okay, I got it now. And we use those as some of the social media content, because the funny, it's nothing funny about personal injury, but it is funny. The guy was smoking weed at his pizza place half an hour before the wreck and was stupid enough to post it on social media. So what did the case?
Yeah, that was the funny part, that he posted it.
That made the case pretty easy for you, huh?
Yeah, they didn't have a lot to talk about it for that.
And then I think this is the record. This one's over 300,000 views. I'm going to try and get it to play on Instagram here. How do I get audio? I had this working yesterday. There we go.
Speeding, has her flashers on. Doesn't seem like there's any safe place for her to pull over. We got an exit coming up in a mile. Looks like she's just going to continue on to the exit. Yeah, I would not pull over on that shoulder there. Ooh, the trooper hits her, clips her back corner. There's no way that would be a safe place to pull over, especially at night. So he's turning around. She's rolled over. So that's a very serious wreck. Looking at that, I think the person who was being pulled over was doing absolutely the safest thing. Put your flashers on, recognize that you've seen the officer, and he's going to pull you over for speeding or whatever it was. I don't know why this officer made that maneuver that he did. I think he is absolutely responsible for causing this wreck and any injuries. I would certainly recommend that she hire an attorney and make a claim against the highway patrol in this case. All right, so highway nighttime. So she's getting pulled over for speeding, has her flash.
All right, so Bryan, we call those reaction videos, and like I said, I think it's now over 300,000 views, over 6,000 likes. What do you want to share with us about that?
Right, it's amazing to me that many people watch me do anything, but you know, I enjoy doing those reaction ones because I've never seen the videos until I literally sit there and watch them on camera. So it is, I've said authentic before, but it really is. It's an immediate reaction. I think those play well to people. I think they play well to clients. Yeah, and it's just another thing another tool that we use to help the calls keep coming in and the cases, you know, keep signing up more cases. So it's these are fun to do, and I can tell that people are influenced by them, definitely.
And the next section, just tap on SEO for a minute. I mentioned the ABCs of SEO. And so, you know, the simple thing that there's like 600 factors in Google's algorithm determining whether you come up in SEO or not. And we like to simplify things at 10 golden rules so I can understand them. My team simplifies them for me, and so our clients can understand them. But the ABCs are architecture, backlinks, and content. So our team does a lot of work on the website to make sure it's fast. Like this is, we're testing it in Google's page speed score. And the A is the architecture of the website. And there's a bunch of advanced things we do. And then the B is backlinks, getting other sites to link to your site. So you see, we've been building other sites linking to Bryan and asking other folks like Top Law Practices and expertise.com, and they've got links to Bryan's site, which makes his site more important in the eyes of Google. And then the third thing is the content. A is architecture, B is backlinks, and C is content. And Bryan, we just send you, I think, 4 blogs a month, and you have to approve them. They're pretty well written and whatnot.
Yeah, I hardly ever have any changes to them. I mean, they're all very well written. There's no grammatical errors, spelling errors. Every blue moon, I may have some, another thought or some input to put in there, but no, it's a great product. It's a great blog. Those are generally just approved upon one reading.
And so that's the ABCs: architecture, backlink, and content. Now, equally important, or maybe even more important, is Google Maps. And we have a whole search engine optimization practice that we call our local search, because, if you think of it, the maps comes up above the SEO. So a lot of times we're super focused on the SEO. But if you can search engine optimize your Google Maps to come up, here Bryan's in the first position for car accident attorneys. He's in the first position. This is an ad for OKC personal injury lawyer. And he's also in the first position for Oklahoma City car wreck lawyer. So if you can come up in the map results, you're going to get, like so many of us, if you're looking for shoe repair or a pizza place that's close to you, we like to use the maps. So Bryan, do you know like who calls on the maps, or do you get any feedback on it?
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentages, but I get a ton of people who find you on the maps. Type in one of these phrases or something similar, you're going to call the person with the best reviews at the top or near the top who's not an ad. And we are there consistently. So yeah, it's just another great source for us. We get tons of calls from Google Maps. So that's been a great job by Jay and his team on getting us and keeping us at the top.
And when we first met, you had 142 Google reviews. Now you're up to 228.
No, I don't think is that right? I thought it was far. I thought we had a lot less than that. Was it 142?
You had, or you might have had fewer. I don't know.
Yeah,
but that was the first screenshot I had.
Yeah, so I think they're less than that actually. But yeah, now they're at 228. Trying to get more all the time. So that to me is when someone sees looking for a car wreck lawyer, they see someone local with 5 stars. That's who they're going to click on.
And then this is a tool we use in our SEO department. I don't know if I've ever shown you this, Brian, have I?
I've never seen this before. But I recall.
We didn't have this tool when we first met. We use it in our new business meetings. So the first result we got when we use this tool is replicating a Google search. So this is saying, in May of 2021, if someone searches car accident lawyer right at your office, you were number 2. And then this is actually not a bad result because you're in we call this a 10-mile grid. So 10 miles to the east, west, north, and south, you're at least in the game. A lot of times when we search firms, they're 21 plus. They're nowhere to be found on Google Maps. What this is saying, like if I double back here to Google Maps, this would be a number 1 result, number 2, number 3. So when, back in May of 2021, you were number 2 right at your office, and then you were number 9, 10 miles to the east. And then this has improved over the last, this one's done in July. You're not, right to the east and west, you're in the top 3 for maps, and you're just slightly out of it, number 4, 5 in the south, not quite as good in the north. And our guys use this tool, and what it does, it allows us to check and improve and fix what's called citations. And so Google calls a link, when someone has a blue underlined link, to bgarrettlaw.com, and you can click that and go to the website, that's called a link. But when it's just a list, like a listing on Facebook, and it might have a no follow to it, it's called a citation. So these could be links or citations, but basically what we do is we go in and clean up and make sure everything's like super consistent. The name, address, and phone number have to be identical in all of these listings. And because Google's a robot, right? It's not a person. So you got to have identical NAP, name, address, and phone. And then we mentioned earlier the weekly content. You got to add content every week to the Google Maps at a minimum once a week. And Google tells you you can update things weekly. So we know that's kind of a guideline for the SEO for local for maps. So the 2 big things 3 things: Google reviews, NAP, name, address, and phone consistency, and your links and citations, and adding content. Brian, anything else you've learned about the maps piece?
I think you covered it. I think it's an effective, just another effective tool for us that people use more and more frequently. But I think you covered everything that I would say.
And the next section, I touched on this earlier. What gets measured gets attention and improves. So we see we give a detailed reporting every month to Brian, and we see, his total leads are going up, his total visits, obviously everything. I like to look at the year over year. So his website traffic's up 136%. His organic visit is up 77%. His phone calls up 53%. And that's really what it all comes down to, right? You're getting more phone calls and more form fills and more chats. Obviously, Brian's converting that business. And then each month, at the end of the month, we'll send Brian and his team a report. And these are all the calls he got in 1 month. And then these are the clients that they signed on. So they retained 12 or 14 of these cases, and these guys didn't sign on. And then with that data, we were able to get information about, how many chats, and chats generally convert at 8 or 10%. And we see calls, calls are great. We talked about this earlier. When someone calls, you might convert them at about 20%. And then when someone fills out a form on your website, or these are Google screened, the form fills generally convert at a much lower rate, at 3 or 4%. Because when someone fills out a form on your site and you call them back, half the time you don't even hear from them. So I'm screwing things up here, Brian, but you want to just talk a little bit about the reporting piece?
Yeah, it's one of the most important things that we do to give feedback to Jay, so they can use their expertise to keep increasing everything. I mean, you may think off when you first see it, 8% is not that much. Well, that's 33 new cases. And what if 10 of those or 8 of those or 5 of those are 6-figure cases? I mean, the cost to, or the income to cost ratio on that is phenomenal. So it's been tremendous. Again, just the LSAs, the phone call increase, and the chat and form fills, all that has just worked perfectly for us.
Thanks for that, and thank you for the part you play. And that brings me to my next point, which is, what makes a great client? And we actually give an award, the client of the month, and we've given it to Bryan, but I owe you a trophy. But
Yeah, I have nothing to commemorate that yet. So.
But what makes a great client? And so if you all have an agency, you have your SEO guys, whatever, there's a few things that we require to get the kind of success Bryan's had. And Bryan's mentioned a lot of those things today, right? Like, he said we have the meetings. This might be a subtle thing, but he shows up at the meetings because we can't move things forward if he's not approving things. Like if he missed the meeting when we recommended the chat program to him or the LSA program, that might have pushed it out a month. If he just said, nah, everything's good, I'm busy, and didn't show up at the meeting. So we use the meetings to recommend new programs and to go through the numbers and to make decisions together. Like, hey, here's our PPC budget or our LSA budget, and we recommend, this program or that program. We've done some lead gen programs, and so you got to show up. And and the other thing is some trust. Like, obviously, hopefully if you all watch this case study, you get the feeling that 10 golden rules in our team executes pretty well. So give us a little bit of trust. Try some of the things we recommend, because generally we're not recommending things just based off of guesswork. Like, we'll try something with 1 or 2 clients, we'll roll it to 6 or 10, and then we'll roll it to 50 or 60 locations across the country. So, if we're recommending chat or LSAs, or a particular strategy, the video strategy, give us a shot. Bryan also said, he approves the content and he makes almost no changes. And I got to tell you, the same copywriter, the same SEO team that's proofing and reading the copy sends it to Bryan and sends it to 25, 30 other attorneys across the country. Bryan's at one end of the spectrum where he approves almost everything. And some people got to rewrite everything and slow the process down. Stuff doesn't get posted on the website. Trust me, folks, the content's good enough to go on your website. It's been written by an attorney copywriter or vetted by an expert and vetted by our SEO team. You don't need to double think the copy. And then the feedback is awesome. Like giving us that feedback on the cases signed and telling us what's working and having, showing up. Our meeting's only once a month. And then we do a check-in for half an hour, a second time in the month. So we're only asking for an hour and a half, be there on time and give us that valuable feedback. We're a professional organization too. We know you're busy, we know you're in court, but if you have a meeting, just reschedule. If you have to go to court, just reschedule the meeting. So Bryan, you can either comment on that, or I'd love to hear from you. What makes a great agency? Like, how are we, better than the folks you had in the past?
Well, it's results. I mean, it's that simple. It's results, and it is the thing I think I've been most impressed with Jay and his team. Results are number one. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, the number of calls, quality calls, number of leads, the increase in case signings, the increase in my income, the growth of my firm. I mean, all that directly goes back to 10 golden rules. There's no question. But I think the thing that I really appreciate as much as anything else is just the open line of communication. I mean, if I have, Google's a robots, and robots are hard to consistently figure out. So if I get a notice from Google that something's not right, I just forward that on to Jenna or to Jay, and they get on it right away. And they respond and they figure it out. And I know they work hard at it because it's not always easy, but they always get it done. So this open line of communications are frequent meetings. Again, they don't take that long. And I need to know what's going on, and they need to know from my standpoint, how things are looking on my end. So that open line of communication is something I've never had before, and it makes me comfortable. It makes me, like Jay said, trust. It makes me trust these guys implicitly. So, and I think if Jay thinks I'm a great client, I appreciate that. And it's easy to be a good client. I let them do their job. I don't interfere too much. Sure, I'll have ideas, I'll have input, I'll have feedback, of course, but they're the experts. A client comes to me and hires me to work their car wreck case. I don't necessarily need them telling me exactly how to do everything. I know how to do it. Let me do it. So that's how you get good results. You hire great people, great teams, and do what they say. I mean, I personally was pretty opposed to doing those videos at first because I don't like to do them. But Jay said, "Man, give it a chance. It's going to help you," and he was right. And I hate them less than I used to, but they work, and they've yet to steer me wrong. And like I said, I think the results are most important, but just the relationship we have, is this open line of communication that I can reach out to them anytime. So it's been great. I think that's what you need to look for, and it's very personal for them too. So that's what I look for in anything I do. So they've been fantastic for my practice.
Thank you so much. What would you say to someone who's in the shopping process? Like they want new SEO guys. I hear that all the time. We're a digital agency, but what are some of the things that you would consider or recommend folks consider, and what are the questions they should ask?
Listen, I would talk, if you're in my line of work and you're an injury attorney, or you're an attorney needs to market, talk to clients. I mean, I may not have told you this, Jay, but I get emails fairly often from people looking in the market, looking for a marketing agency. And hey, I see you're with 10 Golden Rules. What do you think? And I let them know. I think it's great. So you got to go talk to the people who are in it, in the trenches with whatever agency that you're looking at, and talk to them about their experience. I mean, I know lawyers, they're gonna shoot straight with you. They're gonna tell you the truth. If they're not happy. That would be my first recommendation, is talk to the people who are current clients and get their honest feedback. That would be that's it. I mean, you can look at videos and all the other stuff you want to, but nothing speaks more true than experience.
Perfect. Thank you. Well said. All right. So I was just going to wrap up with sort of our agenda and make sure we covered everything. Where's my the little share screen function? Keeps disappearing on me. Share screen. There we go. So, we talked about the local service ads and how to get right to the top of Google. The key thing is get approved, get screened, and then, follow those 4 or 5 things in our secret algorithm. Answer the phone within 15 seconds, get in and disposition the calls, get the app, and accept a lot of the calls. Anything you would add to that, Bryan?
No, I think that's it. Just number one, answer the calls, and feed that algorithm, feed Google. Just that's it. Respond quickly.
Pretty simple. Add the web chat to your website. That's going to increase conversions 20 or 30% for folks who don't want to send an email and aren't able or not willing to call you. Track the numbers. If your agency's not tracking the numbers, you got to know how many people come to your site each month, how many people come from SEO, how many leads you get. And there's 3 kinds of leads for PI and most law practices: calls, form fills, and chats. You should have those chats. The ABCs of SEO: architecture, backlinks, and content. Social media, how to get 300,000 video views. Any other tips on making those videos go viral, Bryan?
I have no. I don't know. I mean, I can't believe it happened to me. So I really think just be yourself. I try not to script it. I just try to talk like I would if I was in a meeting. So I guess that would be my sage advice: is be yourself and talk like you would to a potential client.
And tell those funny stories, like the pizza delivery guy.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be somewhat interesting to listen to. So yeah, and I do think giving people or in those videos, when you talk about personal or professional, like real life experiences, and you can talk about stories and cases, that helps a lot. I think that makes it more believable.
And then the last point was how to do it all without spreading yourself too thin. And that's, our simple solution is we shoot the videos with y'all once a quarter, and then we take care of everything from there. So we post a video every week for 12 weeks. We post it on your blog and do SEO, and then we post it on your social media, Google Maps, and even send out a newsletter. We got a couple questions. Bryan, you still good for a couple more questions?
Yeah, of course.
Question is, how do we know which questions are asked most frequently? Look, the best questions are the authentic questions that your customers are asking you all the time. So where do you come up with those questions?
It's just what you said. What do clients ask me most of the time? How much is my case worth? How do you determine what a fair settlement is going to be? how long is this process going to take? What do I do after I've been in a car wreck? I've never been in one before. What do I do? I mean, I get these cases or these questions every single day. So it is easy for me to come up with them. It's just pick up the phone and talk to somebody, and you'll generate questions. And I have a little notebook. I write them down that we use from time to time. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, this is a question I keep getting asked. We haven't covered it yet. Let's do it. So yeah, that's the answer. It's the questions you get all the time. That's what people want to know.
Yeah, literally, that's the best questions, is the questions that you get asked when someone calls you and they're inquiring about hiring you, or someone's in your boardroom, and obviously with a serious injury case, you want to try and figure out, what's in their mind, and also with laws change or insurance regulations in your state change, people are going to be inquiring about that stuff, and those are that's great content, especially new content. I've used this example for 5 years now, but we were very early to start answering questions. What do I do if I get hit by an Uber? What do I do if I get in an accident with a Lyft? What do I do if I get in an accident in a Lyft? Those were new keywords, because Uber and Lyft were not things people search in regards to car accident lawyers until the last 4 or 5 years. Another question from Stephanie. That was the question from Stephanie. Ryan asked, how often should I check my LSA dashboard?
You want me to answer that?
Give you that one, sure.
Yeah, all the time. Just all the time. I check mine all the time. I get those notifications, and anytime I click on a lead, I look at the dashboard, make sure everything's clean, it's responded to, it's either archived or booked, it's got comments. So I couldn't tell you how many times a day I check it. It is just one of those things in my practice I do constantly.
Carissa asked,
I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me, Jay, but I don't think I am. You cannot check it. You can't check it too much. And it's easy. It's 30 seconds,
Yeah. We say minimum twice a day. And it's awesome you got the app on the weekends, because people are looking for lawyers on the weekends too.
Those calls come in on the weekends all the time. That's why LSA is great, because if I could be at a kid's game or whatever and it pop up, I can check it real quick, respond. Pretty easy, pretty great app.
Bob asks a good question. Does booked mean signed or just spoken to about their case? So booked is Google lingo. Well, I'll answer it first. And the lingo actually comes from, I mentioned they've had this program for 5 years for the air conditioning guys and the plumbers and the roofers. And booked means they booked a meeting. So it means they booked an appointment to come and look at your air conditioning, your plumbing, give you a quote. So for lawyers, booked means it's a good case. I'm going to pay for the lead. But it has absolutely nothing to do with whether you signed them, whether they had insurance. So, for PI, and obviously it's different in different practice areas, but it just means I want more calls like this. This person was injured. They were in an accident. They were searching for a car accident lawyer or divorce attorney or a bankruptcy lawyer. So be very, very careful and book very overbook as opposed to underbook, and archive only the real wacky ones, the ones that have nothing to do with your practice, or their robocalls, they're computer generated calls or sales calls or something. But go ahead, Bryan. I know you're going to.
Yeah, I was going to, I'll just echo what you said. I mean, I get a lot of, not a lot, but, we get a good handful of LSA leads that are car wrecks, but no injuries, property damage only. And we can't monetize those cases. We can't take those on. But I always book those. And I always type in, auto negligence, car wreck, just the keywords we have to. So Google thinks, hey, these are the words he's after, and this one worked. That was successful. Let's get him another one. Or, a case that sounds like a viable case, and it turns out there's no insurance. You find that pretty quickly. It doesn't mean signed up, like you haven't signed the case, but I certainly book more on LSA than we sign. But if it's the right kind of call, if it's a car wreck or a slip and fall, whether we take or not, it's irrelevant. Those are the calls we want. By
the way, here's a pro tip that I've been using. If someone calls and you can't help them, you can't take their case, they have no insurance, or the person who hit them, or they were at fault, and you still give them advice, and they're like, oh, thank you so much. This is very helpful, and thank you for your time. Send them the Google review link and say, hey, do me a huge favor. Hopefully my time here was valuable. Can you just give us a 5-star Google review and send them the link? And so when I invariably get the call from the nephew who's starting up in a business and has no budget, I'm happy to help them out and point them to one of our YouTube videos. and then I asked for that Google link.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that too. I spend a lot of time giving out free advice, as all lawyers probably do. So it's you told me that, and that's been effective.
A question from Bobby: should I have an LSA profile for each of my office locations? I mean, the answer is absolutely yes. What do you think, Bryan?
I've only got one office location, but if you're trying to generate cases in multiple locations, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, that's to me, that's a no-brainer. Absolutely.
I thought didn't you have a Tulsa location at one point?
We tried that at first, and that was with the other company. It just didn't work. It just didn't work. And I told I'm a one-man show, as I've said, and as you know, Jay, and that Tulsa market, it's just too much volume. If we keep, that's kind of why we're out of there, and you guys have been great about getting me surrounding Tulsa, but not in Tulsa, because it's just, the volume is just, when we're in it, it's just too much to handle. So we had to kind of back out of that a little bit.
Carly asked, when someone leaves me a Google review, should I respond to that review, even if it's a bad review?
I've only had one bad review, and that was a lady who claimed she called and we didn't call her back. We had no record she called. So yeah, I responded to her and said, hey, very nicely, we've searched all our records, and I've talked to all the staff, and we don't have any records you called. So I responded to that. But yeah, I respond to all my reviews, and it's a 10-second, hey, thanks so much for trusting us. Enjoyed getting to know you. It's a sentence or two. It's easy. But yeah, I don't know how it works, but Jay said to do it, so I do it, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, it's just, it's good best practice that people see the firms actually listening and responding. And obviously, if it's a negative review, you want to just state your case. You can actually get reviews removed if someone uses slander or swear word. There's like 5 or 6 things that you can get a review removed for. But if somebody just claims to have had a bad experience with your firm, unfortunately, it's going to stay there. And if you don't have record of that person ever calling in, you can state that. And I think the odd bad review is actually good for you, because when you look at like a restaurant and they've got 5 5-star reviews, that's friends and family. But when Bryan's got 228 5-star reviews and 1 bad one, you're going to say, hey, this guy's probably legit, and he is. So I'm glad you all got a chance to meet him and spend some time with him. And I thank you again, Bryan, so much for doing this. This was awesome.
Yeah, of course, Jay. Thank you.
And we'll wrap up now. And please, as I said, if you enjoyed this, please drop the 5-star review in Google or Spotify and iTunes, and we'd love you to subscribe and see more of these. When we send a new one out, you'll get a notification in YouTube as well. So with that, we'll wrap. And Bryan, have a great day, great week, and I'm sure we'll see you soon on our next monthly meeting.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jay.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.